Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. One thing that's become painfully obvious over the past several years, but become poignantly obvious since the 7 February 2025 executive order offered by President Donald Trump to offer refugee status to Afrikaners who are suffering racial oppression in South Africa. There's one thing about the Afrikaner community that's very clear, and it's always been the case. It goes back many, many years, if not much, or perhaps even the entire history of the so-called Afrikaner ethnic group. And what is that? Division, competition, arguing, spats, disputes. It's long been the case. Many Trekboer columns were wiped out because of arrogant asshat leaders who decided to do their own thing and left their oxen trains vulnerable to attack by the Ndebele and others. The history of the Afrikaans people, an identity forged from Dutch, French Huguenot, German, with an admixture of some African folks occasionally over time. This group of people has a long history, a long, proud tradition, but also one of dissension, argument, and people going their own way and taking their toys and their pram when they're not happy. Now, that's not meant as an insult to the Afrikaner community. Any Afrikaner is willing to take a deep look at your people and introspection will realize that has been a major weakness and flaw of your culture and of your people, of your folk. It's time for people to stop the nonsense. Since the 7 February episode, it's one thing after another. People have come out and spoken that they want to leave South Africa, and they're being attacked for wanting to leave South Africa. While those attacking them are almost always people of comfort, luxury, wealth, and peace and solitude in South Africa. Those who want to get out have been victims of criminal actions, denial of opportunity, denial of education, and their businesses failing, their jobs being denied because of their skin color. At least that's what they claim. And that's their truth, as people like to say. That's the reality. So why would someone who doesn't know that and hasn't walked in the boots question it? So people telling them not to leave, or that they're going to be living in camps, or that they won't be able to make it in America, should stop lying to them. If they want to go, if a program becomes available to them, then just let them go. What are you so afraid of? Obviously, you don't like them. Let them go. Whether you're black, white, or brown, you clearly don't like them. So just let them go. Why would you want them for neighbors unless you're there to exploit them? Is that what it's about? You want them as consumers to exploit, for your businesses to keep buying your goods, for your services to keep paying taxes while others get a free ride? Maybe that's what it's all about. And by the same token, those Afrikaners, whomever you are, that want to leave, that think it's batshit crazy for Afrikaners to want to stay in South Africa, you should also shut your mouth. You're not living the truth that someone is staying. I know people whose homes have been invaded, who've been assaulted, nearly murdered, who've been shot, who are going to stay in South Africa. That is their prerogative. It is their home. The Afrikaners have forged a culture, a language, and an identity at the tip of Africa, one that has endured for nearly 400 years. 400 years in the making, with the world's newest language, Afrikaans. Get over yourself. If people want to stay, it's their prerogative. And here's the reality. Of the 2.8 million white Afrikaners, the vast majority will stay in South Africa. 2.8 million people are not leaving South Africa to come to America, and that's their choice. But some will when the program is available to them. So both sides need to shut up and get over it. This is like any Afrikaner gathering. You see behind me the famous site of the Blood River Battle, the Nkombe River in KwaZulu-Natal, where on the 16th of December, 1838, the Trekboers, about 450 strong, held off a Zulu army of 10 to 20,000 warriors in an epically bloody battle that both sides were itching to get to. The Trekboers wanted a fight to defeat the Zulu, and the Zulu wanted to wipe out the Trekboers and chase them out of their lands. And this battle forged a key part of the Afrikaner identity. But that's where unity dies shortly after this. It took years before the so-called Church of the Vow, the Gelofte Church, Kerk, was finally built in Pietermaritzburg, a promise they made. But it took them years to do that. The Afrikaner community is a diverse community with many different people in it. People move into the community through marriage, intermarriage. Folks need to stop the nonsense. When you get Afrikaners together, you put 10 people in a room, you've got 12 leaders. You put 10 Afrikaners in a room, you have 35 ideas. Disunity, attacking each other. People attacking the head of the South African Chamber of Commerce because his mission is to promote business in South Africa. It's not to help people flee South Africa. And so they don't like him for that. And he served in the African National Congress. Well, get over yourself. Lots of people served in lots of organizations. People attacking AfriForum and Solidarity, claiming that they're trying to stop the refugee status for South Africa. That's total horse manure malarkey, and you don't know what you're talking about. And the people attacking my videos, I'm not even an Afrikaner, people attacking my videos where they say, I used to be objective, I'm no longer. You know, these are people who weren't on the program, who've never watched my content, because anybody that makes that claim is an absolute flat out liar. I'm objective and I treat things fairly and I treat people fairly. Every guest that's ever been on my program has been treated fairly. And I've taken people who have views very different than mine and had on my program when they've taken up the offer to come on the program. My recent video about John Steenhuisen was not against John Steenhuisen. I don't have a personal beef with John Steenhuisen, but he's lying. He's spreading misinformation, which is the very thing he claims that AfriForum and Solidarity are doing. A typical Afrikaner trait to destroy Afrikaner unity. And why? Because he serves in the government of national unity? I don't know what his motivation is. Why would he lie like that? This is a man who stridently opposed expropriation without compensation, the Bella Bill, with all of his fervor, vigor, and vim, until the Democratic Alliance entered the government of national unity. And then they rolled over and took it up the backside and said and did virtually nothing. Now they'll try to defend themselves. Oh, we're taking it to court. You know that court case will never win. It's a weak legal basis. The real chance was to take it before the Constitutional Court within 30 days with 1/3 of Parliament. The Democratic Alliance not only didn't lead that effort with 87 members of Parliament, they didn't even mention it and hid from that. And then John Steenhuisen's Department of Agriculture, he probably didn't do it. He's probably not responsible, but he has yet to call people out on this. He said he didn't know about it, so he has addressed it. But what happened when you had agricultural convention in Berlin that you went to, and you invited Theo de Jager from a South African agricultural organization, only to erase him from the photograph in your official government publication because his viewpoint was inconvenient? That's not democracy. That's not engaging the public. That's Stalinist behavior. And it sits squarely in the Department of Agriculture. And who is the minister? John Steenhuisen. We can't blame John Steenhuisen for things that happened in May of last year. He wasn't the minister, but he's been minister for nearly a year now. And this is happening on his watch, and he's aware of it. So he owns it, as does he and the DA own everything that the GNU is doing, that they're doing very little to stop. I don't want to hear all this credit about them stopping the budget. Unacceptable. They waited too long. So these are not attacks against the DA. They're not attacks against government national unity. They're simply statement of analysis of fact, analyzing fact, and giving people the most likely motivations, outcomes, and where things are directed. If you don't like the content, then you should go watch something that fulfills your worldview. An intellectual finds himself or herself challenged by ideas, by conversations. They don't attack other people because they disagree with their worldview. And so if you don't like what AfriForum is saying, then don't listen. If you don't like what Solidarity is saying, then don't listen. If you don't like what Agri-SA is saying, don't listen. If you don't like what John Steenhuisen is saying, don't listen. But my job is to listen, to analyze, predict, and let the world know. That's my role. And I chose that role. If you don't like that, footsec, piss off, hit the road, take it on the arches. Afrikaners, man, you got to stop your horse shit. Stop your horse shit. This is exactly what the ruling party wants in South Africa. The ANC wants you divided. They want you arguing and at each other's throats. And that is exactly what they've achieved. And you're going to blame Trump for it, just like the lunatics on the left are blaming Trump for Volodymyr Zelensky walking out of that room without a peace deal. The deal was there. The paper was ready. All it took was his signature. Instead, he chose to turn into a yet another, woe is me, help us, we're the victims. It wasn't about that. And he just turned down massive U.S. military assistance and U.S. economic integration with Ukraine to protect its future because he's a whiny little biatch. And he's gotten away with it for 3 years. The people of Ukraine will suffer immensely for this, as will Ukrainian and Russian soldiers needlessly. Now, if Donald Trump is smart, he'll get Putin to agree to a ceasefire immediately, and that'll really make Zelensky look like the warmonger that he is, and the EU and all the European countries. Well, in South Africa, just stop talking about solidarity. Stop reading the fake news. Isn't it interesting? News 24 came up with a disinformation czar today for their website. They need to start with their own news reporting, which is very much misinformation. Well, folks, Afrikaners, stop the bickering, stop the fighting, come together, or you will perish together, or alone from this planet. No culture, gone, extinct, wiped out. That's the dystopian future that you're looking at if you just can't get along. Cheers, folks.